that the need to identify the female principle in divine action was vital to the people of Kemet. The divine world was based on the complementarity of the sexes, which was forever becoming, forever evolving, the process of becoming and returning to the source. And as we move away from our center, as we have changed this complementarity of male and female, life has become compartmentalized. The religious is separated from the political, the economic from the sacred, the physical from the spiritual, the law from the practice, male from female. And it is the imbalance in the creative force of becoming, the divine principle of male and female, that explains much of our present conditions. Because a house divided cannot stand. We, buying into somebody else's existential basis of reality, have divided ourselves on male and female. We've let people come into the house and say women should not have that much power, not realizing that from an African perspective, before existence even came into an existence, there was male and female. So what are the conditions? What I call a search for core black culture. What happens to a people's character? What happens to a people's personality who is forcefully snatched from its existential basis and placed in a culture that is diametrically opposed to the very core of their own character? What happens when you're placed in a culture that hates women and sees women as a commodity to be bought and sold? You can't see a TV commercial in this country unless you've got a woman in front of there, barely clothed, looking like she can't barely think for herself, selling a commodity. Analysis on this basis is often marred by a lack of knowledge about core black culture, the core value system that has guided the lives of Africans in the diaspora. Research often ignores the unity among cultures of continental Africa, including ancient Egypt and Africa-America. You see, in some kind of way, we have bought into people's position that Africa is so diversified that you can't see any unity. That's why we need to read something like Diop, where he talks about the culture unity of black Africa, including Egypt. And then the question is, what happens to us when we are brought over here? And we're not just like tops, and we didn't just grow. We came here intact with some basic values. And you see, your values are in your head. You may not be able to bring over the physical objects, but how I ought to treat each other, what I ought to be doing, the respect for elders, and all of that is in your head. So we know more about the values and the belief systems of Western society than we know about Africa. In fact, many Western scholars have even questioned whether Africa had a valid belief system and would deny that Egypt is in Africa in the first place. And so what they have done is to take Egypt, which is on the continent of Africa, and place it in some concept that they've made up called the Middle East. And we have bought into the concept, and we go around calling Egypt in the Middle East. And Diop says, until you put Egypt in the center of what is Africa, your whole history is going to remain suspended out there in air. buying something that's convenient for somebody else's existential basis rather than our own existential basis. And they've taken our belief system and called it superstition. Call it mumbo jumbo. Call it whatever than being valid in its own. It's cultural imperialism, it's ethnocentrism, or whatever other word you want to use in terms of how somebody has looked at us, become the anthropologist, the authority on culture, and then give it back to us. We were saying earlier, where is the jungle in Africa? I have never seen a jungle in Africa, but we brought the Tarzan mentality about Africa. In addition, when Egypt is discussed, more attention is paid to individuals, specifically to the pharaohs, than to the culture. That is, people don't dwell on the ideas, the values, and the beliefs of ancient Egyptian society. In the past decade, however, there has been a significant increase in the number of African American scholars who are making the unity among African cultures worldwide known. And some of them have already been here in this program, talking to you, talking to the students, talking to the faculty. But people like Milana Karenga, people like Donna Marimba Richards Ani, like Malefi Asante, like Linda James Myers, like Wade Nobles, like John Henry Clark, like Sister Raketi Amen Jones and Yosef Ben Johanna and Nzinga Warfield Copped and Ivan Van Sertima, have been doing the kinds of research in terms of reconstructing our own history and letting us know who we are as a people and what we have done and what we can continue to do. And in seeking to understand the character of African Americans, we've tended to pay more attention to the devastating outcomes of living in a society that denies a people its humanity, often missing that which explains the group's ability to thrive and to survive. And likewise, we have done little to study the character and the personality of groups and individuals who would invade another country, steal hundreds of millions of its people, hold them in dungeons, which they call slave castles, chain them together like cattle, rape their children, castrate their men, sell families away from each other, lynch them, and then create a social science whose theories say that enslaved Africans who try to escape to freedom suffer from major psychological disorders. Failed to study a group of people who told us that the enslavers were the good guys. We have not studied those people who write high ideals, but whose behavior have never lived up to the morals that they profess. And Obenga says that in modern society, the basis of continuing conflict is that the moral thought is disseminated only as an ideal, never as pragmatism. The material base of Western society works against the development of true religiosity, true spirituality, and true morality, he says. What must be the psychological state of these people? What kinds of disorders must exist among them? What deviant behavior can be seen in the character of these people? We know the deviant behavior of African Americans because we make our living talking about that. But nobody hardly pays any attention to the deviant behavior. And I think that the book that Marimba Ali has just finished, called Ugura,